Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the course Management Information Systems. Today we're going to continue with the same chapter 14 that was about design and implementation from module 4 systems development. Last lecture we were talking about the design phase of the system development cycle. Like I told before that the system development cycle has 5 phases. हम usually traditional system development cycle को देखते हैं, बाकी सारे जो system development cycles हैं that pretty much revolve around the same 5 phases, जिसमें planning and investigation आ जाता है, analysis होता है, design होता है, implementation, and then the maintenance of the system. So in the last lecture when we were talking about the design, हमने define किया था कि what do we mean by system design, and उसका purpose क्या है, that is to define के how is the system going to accomplish or solve the problem. तो उसमें different जो design structures थे, we said that there was a logical way of designing and there's a physical way of designing. Logical में we were defining the functional requirements of the different components that were working in the system, and in the physical design we were defining the different characteristics or also defining how these components are going to be working and going to be related together. So that basically gives you a technical design. That means कि आपके जो components हैं design system के, उसके अंदर हमने define करिए कि वो function किस तरह कर रहे हैं. Number one, that is the logical design without the implication of what hardware and software is going to be used. While on the second step, they're going to define what kind of hardware and software is going to be used, and that come up to the expectations of those functions. So that means we get the hardware, software, database, telecommunication, etc. किस्म के जो आपके specifications आ जाती हैं. And when you have these specifications and these kind of functions, if they cannot be performed by the existing system, that means you need to acquire the hardware and software facilities. Right, so when you have the hardware and software specifications, you want to buy those products from the different kind of vendors. When we talk about the designs, then design में दो बहुत important aspects आ जाते हैं. That is about the user interface design as well as the security design as well. These are the very two important factors. User interface, why? Because the user has to interact with the system, and how does the user interact with the system, that kind of techniques या जो भी methods वो use करता है, these kind of methods need to be designed in the system design specifications as well. इसके अलावा the security design means that how is the system, how are you going to design the system in such a way that it's going to prevent and detect as well as correct any kind of errors that take place or any kind of security lapses that can take place. So it's all about anticipating what can happen and what will happen in terms of any kind of problems that can occur during the working of the system, which also includes the disaster planning and disaster recovery as well. That means if there are any kind of natural disasters, the system needs to be designed in such a way that there are already preventive measures and planning already implemented in the design there, so that whatever problem can occur, it can be prevented and detected as part of the information system. Right, so when we talk about acquiring hardware and software from different kinds of vendors, then that means that you are going to evaluate that who is the right kind of vendor is going to provide you with the best product. So for evaluating the vendor, again, there are different criteria on which you evaluate the vendor. Vendors की reliability क्या है, what kind of services they are offering, what kind of after sales services they are offering, what is their reputation, and what is their evaluation by the already made clients. Also, what is their willingness to demonstrate the products, and are they willing to do so or not. इसके अलावा there are different kinds of evaluation techniques that are used to evaluate the vendor. So evaluation basically means that you're going to see that if the vendor is going to come up to the expectations of the company's product, whatever you've mentioned, whatever the hardware, software, database, telecommunication specifications you have mentioned in the RFP, the vendors are supposed to provide you the products according to those specifications. अब evaluation किस तरह होती है? Evaluation में first सारे जो vendors के proposals हैं that come on the table, then you select whoever comes up to the criteria of the specifications, and you dismiss unwanted proposals. Afterwards, you ask the vendors for their demonstration, and also ask them to provide you a list of the people who are already using those products or the companies that are already using these products. Iske baad, the final evaluation takes place, in which the final demonstration happens, which is very much close to reality and which can take place with the help of real data as well, so that real environment में real data के साथ जो equipment है वो check हो जाती है, either it's working properly and providing as much efficiency as is required or as is mentioned. Evaluation techniques में different techniques आ जाती हैं, जिसमें we said apart from the TCO and apart from the customer satisfaction, they go for the group contestants. They go for the group consensus, as well as they look at the cost and benefit analysis. They also look at the benchmark tests that can be performed by different magazines as well. Different magazines do, and they perform the benchmark tests and provide the evaluation result in the magazines. And you can also go for point evaluation, which means that assigns weights to the different criteria that are related to the equipment or the system. Right. Afterwards, when a design has been selected and there are companies who want to go for further changes, they go for the RAD sort of system development cycle to implement different kind of changes, or they simply freeze the design specifications, and afterwards the vendor is selected. And once the vendor is selected to provide the required equipment, a contract is signed between the vendor and the company who wants those products, जिसमें सारी डिटेल्स लिखी जाती हैं कि कौन से प्रोडक्ट्स आ रहे हैं, किस किस्म की डीलिंग हो रही है, किस डेट के ऊपर डिलीवर होने, कौन से माइलस्टोन्स अचीव होने हैं, इंस्टॉलेशन किस किस डेट तक होनी है, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, these kind of details. And the contract also includes the RFP as well. Why? Because it has all the specifications that were needed by the vendor to provide that specified product. इसके अलावा in the end, there is a system specification report that is generated as the final design report. That report contains all the details of how the system is supposed to be working, because it also contains the sequence diagrams as well. It also contains the hardware and software telecommunication and database specifications. So basically, that is the kind of report on which the whole implementation can start. So today we're going to start with the implementation phase of the systems development cycle. These last 2 points, as mentioned in the learning objectives, state the purpose of system implementation and discuss the activities associated with it. We're going to discuss this, also list the advantages and disadvantages of purchasing versus developing software. इसके अलावा we're going to look at the last phase as well, that is the maintenance as well as the review of the system that is going to be developed. Right जी. When we talk about the implementation means कि आपके जो documentation वाला काम है, that has been almost done. You have also selected the kind of vendors that you want to go for. You have selected the hardware and software that you want to acquire, or either you want to buy or rent. So you have pretty much planned out everything that needs to be done. Implementation starts after all that. That means when you have the final document with you, you have the system specification with you, then again implementation phase starts, and then this phase again has a number of tasks that need to be accomplished before the complete implementation has been done. The tasks included in this phase are as follows, that is written here in the slide as well. That is, number 1, you acquire the hardware. So acquiring hardware, either programming the software or you are again acquiring the software. User preparation, hiring and training of the personnel, that the people who are going to use the system. Site and data preparation, installation, testing, and in the end user acceptance, that is either people are going to accept that system or not. इन सारे टास्क को हम आगे चल के डिटेल में देखते हैं. Number 1 is hardware acquisition. Acquiring hardware is as simple as what it means, that you are going to either purchase the hardware, you're going to rent the hardware, or you're going to get it on lease. So like we talked about before, the different advantages of renting or leasing in the last lecture, कि either rent करेंगे या lease करेंगे, which means that the people do not own the equipment, they do not put in a lot of initial investment, minimal investment है, शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए रेंट होता है, लीज जो होता है दैट इज लॉन्गर देन द रेंट. सो रेंटिंग में यू गेट द मेंटेनेंस of the product, whereas lease may it is used for a long term, but you do not get the maintenance. While on the other hand, if you're purchasing a certain product, that means you have complete ownership of the product, you can sell it, and it is again a cost benefit solution when you're going to use that product or equipment for a longer period of years, for example for several years. Right जी, information systems के जो vendors हैं, again they can be different kind of companies that provide these kind of equipment. General or small computer manufacturers हो सकते हैं that provide you different equipment. Peripheral equipment manufacturer हो सकते हैं, that means the different kinds of smaller devices that are needed with any kind of computers or laptops के साथ. And computer dealers and distributors as well, इनसे भी लीज या रेंट के ऊपर चीज़ें ली जा सकती हैं. इसके अलावा there is a process for pay for the computing services. That means you are paying as you go for the processing power, for the storage devices and network facilities. We talked about this in the cloud computing as well, that people can sort of acquire the platform. When you say platform as a service, that means you are acquiring the different kinds of platform that is required to build on, and also you can also acquire different kinds of services. That means you are acquiring the storage devices on the cloud, you're acquiring the network facilities on the cloud, and also you are acquiring different computing power on the cloud as well. जी, next step is एक तो ये hardware acquire करने का step हो गया. Next task is acquiring the software. Again, acquiring software does not always mean that you are buying the software from some other company, but it is a decision that is made by the company. Either they want to develop the software in-house, or they want to buy from some other common vendor or common company. Now this decision is basically with the company. Most of the companies usually go for a blend of both these techniques. They buy, for example, they can buy the operating systems, but they can build their own systems, or they can buy certain other kind of tools and they can integrate these tools in their own kind of a software. So both of these techniques can be used together, and they can make a blend of the acquiring software as well as creating software on their own. So what most of the companies do is buy the product off the shelf, and then if they're buying different kind of products or different kinds of softwares off the shelf, and for example they're making an expert system, or they're making a decision support system, again different kind of product softwares can be bought, and they can be brought in together or integrated together with another kind of software as well. Righty, now let's have a look at the comparison of the off-the-shelf software as well as the developed software. इसकी बात हमने पहले भी की थी in the last few chapters. When the factor is cost, again off-the-shelf is low cost and developed software is high cost. Why? Because it's obviously going to take you time and money to build any kind of software that is custom built. In terms of need, off-the-shelf might not get what you need. So when you buy an off-the-shelf software, that means के उसके कुछ features ऐसे होंगे probably that you don't want to use, and कुछ features होंगे that you wanted but they're not available in that software. While on the custom-built software satisfies the need of whatever is needed, so it's according to the needs of the organization and nothing extra. Quality, in terms of quality, usually off-the-shelf softwares are high quality because they have gone through different kinds of versions, different kinds of testing, different kinds of phases, so they're usually high quality products. When you are developing the software, then obviously this is the software that has been built for the first time, then that means it can fall under certain errors as well. So the quality varies depending on the programming team. If the programming team is very good, then that means that they can create a software that is near to perfection. Then in terms of speed, can acquire instantly. That means off-the-shelf software, you can just go and purchase it or rent it or lease it, while a developed software obviously takes time to be developed, and at times years to get developed as well. right? In terms of competitive advantage, this is the basic thing that the companies want to achieve. Competitive advantage can only come with any kind of custom built proprietary software that is developed in-house or developed by the company, or developed if they have given the development to the outsourced company. While on the other hand, off the shelf, say, other organizations can have the same software and same advantages. So that means कि आपके जो competitive advantage है, if you are anticipating that this certain kind of software is going to give you a lot of competitive advantage, then you need to go for a software that needs to be developed. Right, now let's have a look at these two different kinds of softwares in a bit of detail. Externally acquired software again comes in two categories. Number one is, as we talked about before as well, software as a service. That means you are simply using the software that is provided by a software service provider, and you are using that software on their own computers using their own databases. So that means you're using that software as a service. इसके अलावा there are the commercial off-the-shelf softwares. Again, this means कि simple commercial software that are available commonly by the common vendors, and you can simply go and purchase those software. So externally acquired software basically come in these two categories. While if the software is being developed in-house, that means the information system personnel or the programmers are completely responsible for creating that software. Now in-house, maybe again there is a difference that either the software is being created in the same company, or that company is outsourcing the software to be developed by somebody else who's going to develop it for them. So that means there are different aspects that are a crucial part of the in-house development software. Number one is the chief programmers team. That means there needs to be a team that is going to be a part of the development of the software, which consists of the skilled information system personnel, programmers, design and implement programmers who are also part of the design and implementation phases. Then we come to the concept of structured programming. Either, like we said before, that when you are programming or when you are doing the software development, system development, then you either go for a structured approach or an object-oriented approach. So programming में भी इसी तरह structured programming होती है, जिसमें there are basically three kind of structures जो use होते हैं आपके एक code को define करने के लिए. So number one is a sequence structure. That means there is a definite start and a definite end, और उस दरमियान में जो भी actions होने हैं that happen just one after the other. Right, decision structure भी होता है, that is going to define a decision in a program. For example, that either you want to do this or you want to do this. So it's either a yes or a no. If it's a yes, then other set of instructions are take place, and if it's a no, then another kind of set of instructions take place. So again, this is one of the kind of a structure that is being used. Then third one is a loop structure. अगर थोड़ी बहुत आपने programming introduction to computing में पढ़ी होगी, then you would know what I'm talking about, that there is a decision structure, and the next structure is the loop structure. That means it allows the program to do a certain loops or run a certain number of instructions a certain number of time until a certain condition has been met. Then there is the case and object-oriented approach. This again we talked about before as well, कि case tools use कर सकते हैं, rational rows वगैरह या UML programming इस किस्म के tools use कर सकते हैं using the object-oriented approach as well. Then we come to another kind of approach for the development of programs, that is called cross-platform development. That means the use of tools and techniques that allow you to create programs for multiple computer systems and multiple platforms, which means they can run on different kinds of computer systems and different operating systems as well. For example, Microsoft's .NET framework that provides you the functionality of creating programs that can be run on different kinds of operating systems. Then there's the integrated development environment, जिनको IDEs बोलते हैं. These again consist of tools that are needed for the programming as well as the programming languages all together in one, and they are usually integrated into one package. So example of this is the Visual Studio. Again, Microsoft Visual Studio is an example of an integrated development environment. इसके अलावा in the end, when you are programming something, then again there's a very important aspect of that is the documentation. Documentation basically two types की होती है. Number one is the technical documentation, and the second one is the user documentation. So in the technical documentation states out the purpose of the major program code, major pieces of the program code, as well as its explanation that this is the program code and this is how it's working. While on the other hand, user documentation is basically meant for the users, and it gives an easier to understand description of how a certain program is to be used and how it should be working. And it also lists benefits of the program as well for the stakeholders as well. Right, the next phase is acquiring the databases and telecommunication systems. That means obviously when you're working in that environment, along for the simple hardware and software, you require different kinds of databases as well. So if there is a requirement of the need of an increased storage or a new kind of a database management system, to create networks and communication methods for business, new telecommunication equipment may be required. And again, the same hardware and software acquiring procedures happen here as well. That means either you go for the custom built DBMS, or you want to go for any kind of DBMS that is commonly available by vendors. And same goes for the telecommunication hardware as well, that either you're acquiring it, renting it, or leasing it. And there's another option as well, that the companies can buy the used products as well that are available on the internet auction sites. Then comes the task of user preparation. User preparation basically means कि आप ready कर रहे हैं लोगों को, and by this means that the people who are going to use the software or use the system. That means the managers, the decision makers, the employees, and other users, as well as stakeholders of the new system. It is a very important aspect of the implementation phase, but it's usually ignored area of the system implementation. However, this is very important because you have to prepare the users, you have to train the users so that they can properly use the system and get the full benefit of the information system that is going to be implemented in the organization. Right, the next part is the information system personnel hiring and training. That means if you are acquiring a new kind of a system, or for example you are acquiring a new kind of an ERP system, that means you need to hire the information personnel who are either well aware of how to use this or how to maintain that information system, or you need to train those information system personnel to be able to maintain and review the system accordingly. So training programs should be conducted for the information system personnel who will be using the computer system and maintaining it, and more detailed than user training in the technical aspects of the systems, because user training means you're only going to tell how you're going to use the system, whereas IS personal training is more technical because they're going to do in detail of how the system is working and how it's going to be working. Right, the next task is site preparation. Basically means that the preparation of the new location of the new system. Again, if there are more hardware required and more devices that are required, these need to be placed somewhere. So it's as simple as making space for a certain kind of a hardware, and it can be more complex as creating a whole room with full security and all that. So larger systems may require special equipment. That means you need to install security features in a room which contains highly secure mainframes, for example, or servers, for example. Developing information sites that are energy efficient is also important. Now the next task again after the site preparation is the data preparation, which is again very important, because unless and until you do not do the data conversion, for example, if the new system requires data in a certain kind of a format, then that means the old data needs to be converted into that new format. And it also ensures that all files and databases are ready to be used with the new computer software and systems. So it's another very time consuming actually part of the implementation, that not only you're creating space for the new equipment, but you're also managing that already existing data as well. You need to do the data conversion so that that data can be used with the new systems and new softwares. Righty, then comes the task of installation. Once you have everything ready, that means you have the hardware, you have the software, you have everything with you, you have the site prepared, you have the data prepared as well. Now you're actually going to place that equipment on the site. So the process of physically placing computer equipment on the site and making it operational. Normally, manufacturer is responsible for installing the computer equipment. That means whoever the vendor is, he is responsible for installing those computer equipment. And usually someone from the organization, or for example the information system manager, should also oversee the process of installation, whether everything and every product that has been delivered has been installed or not. Righty, after everything has been installed and systems are up and running, that means you start doing the testing phase in the real environment. Ab testing jo hai, there are of different kinds of testing. Good testing procedures take place. Why? To make sure that the system is working as expected in the actual environment. Unit testing kya hoti hai? It's basically testing a single code of the system. So every different program that is part of the software, each program is tested. Then system testing means that the entire programs are the system is run once, so that all the programs are tested once. Volume testing means that you're testing the application with a large amount of data, so that you see that if the system can handle this large amount of data or not. Integration testing is testing all the related systems together. Whatever systems are part of that information system, you are running that. So you're testing all the components of the system together, and this is why do you want to do this? To ensure that a data flow is efficient throughout the integrated systems. Then there is the acceptance test. Acceptance test is basically a user acceptance test. That means conducting those tests that are required by the user. And why do we do that? Because we want to be sure that the performance objectives that were mentioned before are met by the system or not. Right ji. Then after these kind of testing, दो major testings होती हैं. एक alpha testing होती है, दूसरी beta testing होती है. You must have heard about the beta version of a software as well. So alpha testing means that you are testing the program that has not been completed yet. Beta testing basically, so beta testing is basically when the software has been completed, or the software जो है that is tested by the end users. So end users, when these test the software for any kind of bugs and errors, so that is called the beta testing. Usually softwares के beta versions पहले निकलते हैं so that the users can use that software and figure out if there are any kind of errors, and afterwards the system is improved again. Right, after all kinds of testings have been done and the testings have been approved, or user ने भी approve कर दिया कि system is good enough, because you do the testing with a set of users, then you start with the startup procedure. Startup कहते हैं या इसको cut over भी बोलते हैं. Basically happens after the final testing, and the proper startup is also very crucial and it's very important, because unless and until के startup अगर सही नहीं लिया जाएगा, then again a very proper working software या information system might fail as well. So it's a process of making the final tested information system fully operational. So, and there are different kinds of various startup या cutover approaches available. Number one is direct conversion. Direct conversion means that the old system is stopped and the new system is started on the same date at the same time. So that means एकदम उन्होंने जो old system काम कर रहा था उसको बंद कर दिया, और जो new system है उसको चलाना शुरू कर दिया on a certain date. This kind of approach is not usually used, और इसके बहुत सारे problems भी आ सकते हैं. For example, if the new system जब वो larger setting में एकदम शुरू होता है, then people might not be able to fully accept it, and it might create certain errors. So there's always a chance of errors when you set up something new. Righty. On the other hand, a phase-in approach is slightly different than the direct conversion. इसमें different applications जो होती हैं वो फेज इन की जाती हैं ऑफ द न्यू सिस्टम, और पुराने सिस्टम के कुछ एप्लीकेशंस को बारी बारी फेज आउट किया जाता है. सो वन डे यू हैव वन एप्लीकेशन न्यू वाले की चला रहे हैं और ओल्ड एप्लीकेशन उसी दिन पुराने वाले की बंद कर रहे हैं. सो इसी तरह एप्लीकेशन बाय एप्लीकेशन दे मूव फ्रॉम phasing in all of the new system to phasing out all of the old system. And then a very interesting one is a pilot startup. Pilot startup में क्या है, basically you do not phase in and phase out में तो आप different applications उस system की बारी बारी चला रहे थे. Pilot में you basically implement the whole system, install the whole system and run the whole system, but in one of the departments maybe, or in one of the outlets maybe. For example, inventory control system that can be run on one of the retail outlets if a company has number of retail outlets, to check if it's working fine in one retail outlet or not. So usse hi hota hai ki when it does so that is called a pilot startup. Parallel startup means कि आप older system को भी run कर रहे हैं and newer system को भी run कर रहे हैं at the same time, and you are comparing the performance of the two systems together, so that if there are any problems in the new one, या फिर ये भी देख रहे हैं कि जो new system है is that performing efficiently or more efficiently than the older system or not. And afterwards, when the people become confident with the new system that yes, it is creating much benefits, then slowly that older system is closed down and everybody shifts to the new system. Right, so here's a graphical representation of how the system implementation takes place in the startup task. So older system, direct conversion में older system है, and then there's no such break and you move on to the new system. Phase in approach में some parts of the older system are working and some parts of the newer system are working. Pilot startup में we have the old system working and you are doing pilot 1 in one department, pilot 2 for example, you've implemented that new system in 2 departments, then you have implemented that system in the 3 departments, and slowly you implement the system in throughout the organization. Then parallel startup में old system भी work कर रहे हैं and at the same time new system भी work कर रहे हैं, and both of them are compared for performance. Right, after implementation comes the next phase of the systems development cycle, that is operation, maintenance and review of the system that has been installed and that is running in the organization. Now system operation basically means that you are checking the use of the new system or the modified system to see if it's working in all the aspects of the organization, that means the operational aspects of the organization. So आप उसको different किस्म के operating conditions में check करते हैं कि जो system है it is working in or fulfilling the task in all the operational sectors. Then for better operations, it's also very important that the people are using that information system to its full capacity or not. And for that, जो हमने पहले भी बात की थी, that training the users is equally important, because unless and until they train the users and tell them that these are the benefits of the new system and this is how you can use it to for your own benefit, the people will be reluctant to use it. So that's why training is also important for better operations of the system, and help desk is again a very important aspect or the concept of providing the users with the help to understand how the system is going to be used. Then the next important factor is the maintenance of the systems, the maintenance of the system. That means checking, changing and enhancing the system to make it more useful in achieving user and organizational goals. So throughout the process of the system's working, the system is basically goes through different levels of maintenance. कि उसको check किया जाता है that either it's working or it's working in the optimal condition or not. So the reasons for maintenance could be that there are changes in the business processes, there are new requests from stakeholders, users and managers, there have been bugs or errors in the program, there are technical and hardware problems that have arisen, there are corporate mergers and acquisitions, and there are certain government regulations according to which you need to alter the system to some bit. Right? With the different kinds of reasons for the maintenance, maintenance का जो span है then again sort of varies, because either maintenance एक small level की हो सकती है या फिर maintenance इतने बड़े level की हो सकती है that you have to start over with the recycling process. Again, there was a concept of autonomic computing that basically moves towards the fact that the computers should be able to maintain their own functionality. So that makes the system self-protecting, self-healing, and self-optimizing as well. Right, then again, like I said, that the maintenance can be of different categories and of different volume. Then slipstream upgrade is basically a very minor upgrade. जो के प्रोग्रामर्स होते हैं, छोटा सा कोड होता है, उसको हल्का सा चेंज करना होता है, and they do not at times notify the customers or the users of that slipstream upgrade. Patch, on the other hand, is again a minor change to correct a problem, and that patch is again released separately and it can be integrated with the code. So you, for example, antivirus programs जो चल रहे होते हैं, अगर कोई virus नहीं आ रहा है, then there is a patch to correct that virus that contains the virus definition. So you install that patch and it integrates with the already existing antivirus system, antivirus program. Then we have a release. Release जो है, that is a significant change that can happen. So again, release जो है, that is again a whole set of program that often requires changes in the documentation of the software as well. Version again is a huge change. That means it includes different kinds of features of that are included in the new program. So again, the program needs to be installed completely. So there are different kinds of maintenance that can happen according to the level of maintenance, where slipstream upgrade is a very small change in the program, whereas version is a complete change in the program that includes new features as well. Right, the performing maintenance के लिए, like I said, the information systems के personnel जो होते हैं, that also make up the maintenance team, and they are responsible for modifying, fixing, updating the existing software. And like I said before, that maintenance can be done manually before, but now the maintenance process or the maintenance function is becoming more automated as well. That means there are certain tools and techniques available that the computers can to maintain and upgrade the software continuously and centrally. Next is we have the review. Review में क्या हो रहा है? Basically it's a process of analyzing the system to make sure that it is operating as intended. That means कि उसके जो benefits or performance objectives हैं, these are the same as that were mentioned or that were expected before. So this process compares the performance and benefits of the system as it was designed with the performance and the benefits of the system that is currently working now, so that उन दोनों का comparison हो जाए, and if there are any problems, then that means these problems need to be solved. Again, system review process जो है, it can be very small, जिस तरह maintenance थी, smaller scope हो सकता है उसका, और इसका scope इतना बड़ा भी हो सकता है that it can start the system development cycle all over again. Now this review process can be either event driven review or time driven review. So review basically जो word यहाँ पे use हो रहा है, that is basically a sort of a need to improve the software. So either the need to improve the software happens when a certain problem occurs, that is event driven, or it can happen when you are reviewing the software on a timely basis. So event driven review is basically triggered by a problem or an opportunity, or it can be triggered by any kind of a natural disaster as well, that allows the people to go for any kind of security measures, or to implement any kind of security measures in the information systems, or to implement any kind of disaster recovery and planning measures in the information systems as well. Time-driven review again is performed after a specific amount of time. For example, it could be yearly, it could be monthly, or it could be done after 5 years. So it basically depends upon the kind of organization and the kind of company. What does it go for? It goes for the event-driven reviews, or it goes for time-driven reviews. Some of the companies go for both of them. So for example, if there's a billing application in a company, for example, it might be reviewed once a year for errors or inefficiencies. That could be a time-driven approach, or it can be changed and reviewed when a merger or acquisition takes place for that billing application. So that billing application will be reviewed again, and it can go to a system development cycle once more again. Why? Because that is a event-driven review. Alright, next we have the system performance measurement. This is again a part of the systems review process. Jisko hum kehte hain, it's also included in the review process, jisme monitoring of the system takes place. Now, monitoring of the system means that it includes the number of errors that are encountered, the amount of memory that is required, the amount of processing or CPU time that is needed, and the other problems that are related with the computer systems. All of these things are closely observed to monitor the system so that it can be a part of the systems review. And like I said, the systems review kya hai? It's basically to check the performance as well as the benefits of the system, that either it's performing and giving the benefits as expected or not. Then there are different benchmarks for the performance measurement, and these are the critical when you are checking the system for any kind of monitoring problems or any kind of performance problems. There are different kinds of system performance products that are available there are different kinds of software that measure all components of the computer-based information system, which include the hardware, the software, the databases, and the telecommunication. And these softwares are basically tools, and techniques are basically there to assist in the monitoring process or assessing the system performance. And when these system performance tools are properly used, then the system performance products can quickly and efficiently locate the actual and potential problems that are occurring or that are causing any kind of disturbance in the system. So with this systems performance measurement and systems review, we basically end the system development cycle, so to speak. लेकिन ये होता है कि systems review में अगर कोई भी problem generate हो रही है, then you either move on to the maintenance phase or you move on to the systems review phase, जिसमें the whole system development cycle may start all over again. While we said in the maintenance phase में हमने बोला था कि different maintenance हो सकती है at different levels. It can be a slight upgrade to or it could be a simple release that is released, or it could be a complete version that is released. That means कि उसके अंदर और features जो हैं वो डाल के release किए गए हैं उस program के या उस software के. So this is where we end our system development cycle, and so far we have done the implementation phase and the maintenance as well as the systems review phase. Implementation phase की जब हमने बात की थी, we said that implementation में there are different tasks that happen, and implementation happens after the design phases have finished and you have the complete documentation जिसके ऊपर आपने implementation शुरू करनी है. उसके ऊपर hardware acquire करेंगे, either you renting, purchasing or leasing the hardware. Then you acquiring the software. Software acquiring means either you're buying this software off the shelf, or you're buying the software as a service, or you're creating your own proprietary software or custom built software in-house, or you're outsourcing the software development to some other company. So whatever the method that happens in the implementation phase. Then comes the user preparation. That means the people or the users or the individuals that are going to use the software, you need to train the people in order to use it in an efficient manner. Then comes the personnel and hiring and training. That means the information system personnel who are going to be maintaining the software, who are going to be technically using the software, they need to be trained or they need to be hired for this purpose. Then comes the site preparation and the data preparation. Site preparation means that wherever you want to install that equipment or software or the hardware, then you need to prepare that place for that. Either it's a small area or a room in which you want to place the equipment. Data preparation means that if there's a new system coming in and it requires that the data conversion takes place to in a format that is suitable for the new system, then that should take place at this point. इसके बाद the installation comes up, which means कि physical placement of the equipment in the organization. That is done by the vendor, and the process is overseen by the information system manager or the IS personnel. Then comes the testing phase. Once everything has been installed in the location, then the testing comes up now. That means testing जो है, it's there to check if the system is working properly in the actual setting. So unit testing takes place, system testing होती है, इसके अलावा आपकी integrated testing होती है. Then we have the acceptance testing, and after that we have the alpha testing and the beta testing. Alpha testing is the one जिसमें system को, even though it's not completed yet, completely installed yet, उसके different portions check किए जाते हैं. In the last phase there is the beta testing, which is then done by the end users themselves, so that any kind of errors and bugs that happen in the beta test are improved in the final corrected release. Then once the system has been tested, it is ready for the startup or cutover. That means that the people can shift to the system and they can start working on the new system. Now the startup basically इसके different approaches हैं कि आपने startup जो करना है वो किस तरीके से करना है. Then there is a direct conversion. That means you stop जो old system एकदम stop कर देते हैं और new system एकदम start कर देते हैं. Then there was a pilot startup, there was a parallel startup, as well as the phase in startup. That are just different methods of how you're going to basically start the working of the new system. So that, and the best one being pilot startup को usually best consider किया जाता है, या parallel startup को best consider किया जाता है, because it slowly and gradually builds the confidence of the people in the new system so that they are ready to accept the new system. And once all of this has taken place and the new system is working in the organization, then comes the last phase of system maintenance, review and monitoring. Why? Because when the system is working in the organization, then obviously technology जो है वो भी advance होती चली जा रही है. So either the review happens on the event basis. For example, a problem is occurring, a disaster is occurring that is causing the system to be upgraded or improved, or there is a time-based review that needs to be done. That is, for example, अगर एक point पे system install किया गया है, then probably after 3 months or probably after a year there is a review going on in which जिसमें checking होगी कि either the system should be working the way it's supposed to work, or if there are certain improvements, or अगर ज़्यादा improvement required है, that means that the whole system development cycle might start all over again. Right, ji. Considering all of these things of the implementation and the review, let's have a look at the case study. The case study is called "A Port of Brisbane Develops System to Tighten Security." Now basically इसमें क्या हो रहा है that they are implementing the information systems that are going to help the different airports or different seaports to secure the system and also provide authentication and verification to different kinds of employees as well. So for this, the Australian government established a new department called OzCheck that should work with the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation and the Australian Federal Police to perform the background checks and issue ID cards. So again, to increase the security of the seaports and airports, this new regulation was supposed to be done. And seaports or different airports के लिए क्या काम छोड़ दिया था उन organizations ने, that it is left to the seaports to provide security training for employees, make sure employees fill out the application form for ID cards, submit applications to OzCheck, and distribute ID cards to cleared employees, and work with government officials to deal with employees who don't clear the security check. So again, to implement the security, these seaports and airports were supposed to do this for their employees. And in one of the port called the Port of Brisbane, the administrators at the Port of Brisbane provided the requirements. Now this Port of Brisbane is Australia's third busiest container port and the first to develop a system to process their 250 employees through the security check process. Right, ji. Believing strongly in the power of computer-based information systems, the administrators at the Port of Brisbane provided the requirements of the system to their system analysts as the basis for developing system to automate the process. Now, when the government gave them the order that they need to basically train the employees in the security issues, they have to fill out the application forms of the ID cards and all of these things, then they said that if they have 250 employees, then it's going to be difficult for them to manage all of the employees manually. या उन सबको training time निकाल के अलग से train करना, that would be a very time consuming job. So what they thought was they're going to develop an information system that is going to help the employees get trained and also fill out their application forms, or वो automatically, basically they wanted to automate that whole process of security checking. So what the Board of Brisbane administration did was to give a systems requirement report to their system analyst that this is the requirements of the system and we want a system that is going to do this. So then the system analyst thought that the method of delivering the required 15-page security awareness course was over the web. Rather than creating the training system themselves, they turned to the experts. So they gave this job to some other company so that they can create that training course for them, and that company was called Today Corp. It was the largest online learning development and recruitment company and one of the top 10 e-learning solution companies globally. So they gave this kind of a job to a very well-known company to create their training program. So those people then, the Today Corp worked with Today of Brisbane systems experts to design an all-in-one solution that includes a web-based e-learning program and ID card registration system. So that's why now who is involved in the whole design process? It's the people at the Today Corp as well as the people that are working, the administrators at the Port of Brisbane. And who are the people working there? These are the system experts that are going to work with the other company as well. So there is again a team that is working together to build and design that information system. So what were they developing? They were developing an all-in-one solution, not only for the training but also for the ID card registration system as well. Right, जी, अब benefits क्या थे उस सारे system के? Providing the training online saves the Port of Brisbane from having to hire trainers to provide face-to-face classes. An online system allows employees to work through the training at times convenient for them rather than attending a class. And it also saves the port the expense and inconvenience of taking employees off duty for training. So these are the three basic benefits of doing so. So the company that they hired basically developed that software for them, and it was a very enjoyable and thorough method of training for the employees. जिसके end में quizzes थे, and by the end of that training lecture, they could fill out the form, and then the system collects the employee information gathered from the online form and transfers directly to the OzCheck data center over secure VPN connection. So after the training, they were filling out the forms, and when the forms data was then collected and sent through any kind of network, through the VPN network, over to the OzCheck database or the OzCheck data center. And when it gives the data to the OzCheck basically checks if the data is valid or not. Then the data is returned to the port, which then notifies the employees. Employees report to the port office where a photo is taken, and then the ID card is issued. So basically what they did was, with the help of that information system, they basically automated the whole process of training as well as registration for the ID card. And ज़्यादा time नहीं लगा because it took them only 2 months for the system developers at the Port of Brisbane and Today Corp to develop and deliver the system. So it was a smaller system, so they could deliver that in 2 months only. और उन्होंने जो tools use किए थे, they used that Macromedia Flash and XML for creating that web-based e-learning solution. Right, discussion questions क्या हैं इस case study के? Number 1 is what motivated the Port of Brisbane to develop its new system. So what was the basic motivation behind using that new system? एक तो ये कि government की तरफ से regulation आ गई थी that the employees have to go through this process, they have to be trained and they have to register for the ID card, so that in order to make those seaport and airport more secure. Right, one of the motivation was that. So this is how you can say the initiation of the project took place. Then also another motivation for going towards an automated approach was that they wanted to reduce the cost, as well as they wanted to reduce the time of the employees, so that उनको off duty ना करना पड़े employees को training के लिए, and they wanted to reduce the cost of the trainer who has to come every time to train a number of employees. That's why they wanted to go for a web-based solution. So these are the two basic motivational factors, or the initiation points for which they wanted to start that system development, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं. Right, what were the requirements of the system design? Now the requirements of the system design were that the system is supposed to do two basic things. Number one is that it's going to provide the training to the employees online or to a web interface, and it's also going to do the registration, and it's also going to send this data to the OzCheck as well. So these were the list of requirements that were given to the system analyst in order to develop that information system. Right, so this is where we end our lecture for today. In the next lecture, we're going to talk about the social and ethical issues regarding the information systems. That when the organizations use the information systems, तो उसके social, ethical, political issues किस किस्म के arise हो सकते हैं. So this is all for today. We're going to meet in the next lecture. Thank you very much.